Are you ready to learn about the property market? Then you're in the right place. This is Everything Property by Pivotal Homes, where we connect Australia's best developers, agents, home buyer specialists, wealth creation experts, and property advisors to the people of Australia. Broadcasted from Whitehorse Studios on the Gold Coast. And now, here are your hosts, Hayden Ashton and Tom Egan.
G'day guys, viewers and listeners right across Australia. Welcome to Everything Property by Pivotal Homes, where we connect Australia's best developers, first home buyer specialists, wealth creation experts and property advisors to the people of Australia. Now, today's guest is one we are very, very excited about. He has assisted over 5,200 first home buyers and connected them to the appropriate builders and properties around Australia in the last 6 months alone. Has run 3 of the largest first home buyer seminars in Australian history, the founder of First Home Buddy, Australia's only e-learning program designed to help first home buyers save time, money and stress. And he also works with leading property and finance companies to assist them grow and outsmart their competition. The man I'm speaking about is none other than Daniel Baxter. Daniel, welcome to the show, mate.
Thank you very much for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Mate, Tommy, how are you, mate? Good?
Fired up, mate.
Look, we're very excited to have you, and we're going to go into all sorts of detail about, obviously, the first home buyer market and all the things that are happening in that space at the moment, which we'll be able to speak extensively on. But before we do that, I really want to learn about your story into property, how you got into it, where you grew up, all that sort of stuff, to give some sort of feedback and context to the viewers at home.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually a Sydney boy, so born and raised in Sydney. Don't hold that against me, guys.
I'm a Welshman too, don't worry.
Well and truly Queensland now, they'll never get me back. But yeah, grew up in Sydney, started a real estate business with my mother actually back in 2011. Always had an interest in real estate, wanted to sell sort of established property from a pretty young age, but never really felt I was mature enough to do it. So ended up sort of just going down the path, and I worked for the police for many years in Sydney.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
Copper.
so it was,
Wow.
so not just civilian stuff, but we worked for Triple O, did police radio, so like you see on the cop show and stuff like that, you're rating them all their jobs, so it was pretty cool.
You would have seen some stuff there, or heard some stuff, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty intense at times, but fun as well. It's certainly a different job. And I think you learn a lot of life lessons, doing that, and the ability to multitask, although... Yeah, I probably think multitasking is a little bit overrated.
What does your wife think about that?
Yeah,
she reckons you can multitask?
You can't do nothing.
That's right.
You're lucky to do one thing right. But yeah, so I sort of started that, and when I was working for the police, that's when I started the real estate business with my mum. And I sort of did that full time and did the other job full time and did that for about 4 years.
And that was just existing?
Yeah, existing. Yep. So, but we operate a little bit differently to a standard real estate agents. We operated nationally and we operated online. And effectively help people sort of sell their own properties, but with our assistance. So our business model was always different. Had some good things and some bad things. Obviously, being Australia-wide, able to target anyone and everybody. But also, I think that becomes much harder as well because you don't just have that a real local area where you can just go to and keep going back to those people for to get new business and stuff like that. So. I guess that essentially made us get very good at marketing, and that's sort of what we do now. We tie in, obviously, we focus on first home buyers. We worked out, through our real estate, through selling real estate, but then also helping people buy property. We really loved working with first home buyers, and we realised they needed the most help. And then from that point, we went, how do we tie in what we love about helping first home buyers, but also what we love about marketing, and build a business around that, and that's essentially what we do now.
And both Tom and I have been involved in first home buyer based organisations, as well as investment and second home buyers and all that sort of stuff. But I think you'd have to agree that there is something special about assisting a first home buyer, knowing that they're accomplishing or putting a foot on the ladder that they may not have even thought was ever possible.
And I think it's huge that they're doing it the right way.
Yep.
That's one thing that I really enjoyed when we were doing it. Having the business and making sure that the first home buyers aren't overspending, having the right strategy, what are they actually wanting, and then educating them through the right process. Because unfortunately, you would see it all the time. How many clients make a mistake? How many times they don't know how to read a contract? They're getting, things that they think they are getting, but they're not. It's sad. A lot of the time. Yeah, we've seen so many clients come to us shattered, I guess. So, yeah.
And it is. We think back, we've all obviously bought our first homes before. But it is, without doubt, the biggest financial decision we've all ever made.
Stressful.
Right? It's huge.
Yeah,
it's
that's
like
right.
At that point, when I was in Sydney, we spent $500,000 on my first home, many years ago. I thought the world was about to end. I was like, what am I doing? This is crazy.
Where was that, mate?
In Miranda.
Yeah, right, okay.
So in the Sutherland Shire. So
Up Cronulla.
yeah, that's it. I like the Raiders. But it's such a huge decision. And unfortunately, it is, like you touched on, Tom, it's one that a lot of people make a lot of mistakes when they do it. And that's what we really wanted to create when it came to the e-learning side of what we do as well. Give them everything that they need to be able to make smarter, better informed decisions. So that first property purchase, whether it's maybe buying established or obviously we concentrate on that new market now, but it's a good one. It's one that they look back on fondly and they feel good about, and ultimately it's a good investment for them. It's not just a home and then they lose money in 5 years if they need to sell.
And I think that's someone having feedback of what's the strategy.
Yep.
Is this going to be your home? A lot of them think this is going to be our home for 30 years. I think the average home is like 5 to 7 years before they sell it. And a lot of the time, once you actually sit down and explain the different strategies, explain, okay, your dream home may cost you 1.5, but the home that you might start with is 500,000. How do we get you to that $1.5 million home? There's really good strategies to follow. And when you're going to purchase that $500,000 house, you've got to have that team. And I think that's what most of them overlook. If you don't have the right solicitor, you don't have the right builder, you don't have the right agent involved.
Finance broker.
Yeah, I think that's 60% of it as well. Without having that core team there, you could just make so many more mistakes just with the one wrong person like a finance broker. So
yeah, absolutely. It's just that one missing piece of the puzzle can cause a lot of issues.
Yeah, that's right. And I want to touch on first home buyer, buddy. I said it in the intro, Australia's first e-learning system or program designed to specifically assist first home buyers gain information, knowledge, and save time and money, I suppose. So what was the passion and the drive behind that?
Well, that was sort of what we used to do when we would sell property. Is something never made sense to me is when I help people sell a property is why don't I help them buy so I can help them get just as good a result when they buy, not just when they sell. Because it's like, okay, as an agent, I help them sell, I get them a great price, and they buy and they get a bad deal.
Yeah.
Makes zero sense to me. So we used to, as a value add for our clients, we would just help them purchase as well. And what I realised, I actually really liked that buying side. Because
that's where your money's made, isn't it? The old saying, your money's made when you buy.
Well, that's it. And you can build some really good relationships like that as well. But I really like that side as well. So we started doing, more marketing towards, looking for people to help them buy a property. And I would say, probably 80% of people coming to us for help were first home buyers.
Right.
And the problem with that was they couldn't afford our fee. As a buyer's agent, that fee, gets up there, depending on what they're purchasing, and that takes too big a chunk out of their deposit for them to be able to afford that service, but they needed that service more than anybody else. So what we wanted to do was basically package up all of our knowledge into a format that a first home buyer would, number one, feel comfortable with going through, which is like a video format, training, online course sort of format, and also be able to supply it at a price point they would be able to all get access to. They can buy a property, they can buy this program.
So really make it available in a mass for the masses, I suppose.
Absolutely, I'd be able to scale that out and help more people. So it's not as one-on-one and personal.
Yep.
But still giving them all that information that they need to make really good decisions along the way. But not just good decisions. There's nothing better than making decisions and feeling confident.
Great point. Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
one of the best things, right?
Yeah.
You want to feel good about the decision. You want to yep, that's it. I feel good. It's not one of those where you're like, and then you crap in your pants.
Yeah, that's right.
For the next 3 months about it. So that's what we wanted to do. So now basically with that first home buyer buddy program, we tie that into our marketing strategies when we're helping builders or property companies, because it's not just about selling people a home for us. What we want to do is obviously, that's an end goal for clients we work with, but it's also making sure that they have a really good experience all the way through and feel confident with that process.
And I suppose have a really good understanding of what it is they're doing as well. So as you said, they can be confident with, when they start speaking to a finance broker or start speaking to a builder or whoever it may be along the line, they already have some sort of grasp of what's about to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And the finance part that both you guys touched on, for me, it is without doubt the most important part. Because you guys are great at building homes. You get amazing homes for your clients. The property companies that work with it, service those clients, they probably do a really good job. None of that matters if these people can't get the money.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're very, I guess, focused around at the core of everything we do trying to find the right people who are financially prepared already to be able to take that leap and buy that first home. Not just people who want to do it, because obviously there's lots of people who want to do it, not a whole lot of people who can actually follow through.
Yeah. And mate, I touched on it earlier, 5,200, over 5,000 people in the last 6 months alone have been involved in your first home buyer buddy program. Now, was that those numbers before COVID, before the home builder boost, or is that a recent figure?
No, so probably from around January.
Yep.
As far as different lead generation strategies we've developed for our builders or property companies that we work with, our own means as well, through online seminars or webinars and things that we run. So yeah, there's so many different ways we can reach these people. That's what I really love about it.
Yeah.
It's not just have to get one-on-one with people. Obviously I like that too, but it's how can we speak to more people and help more people. I think that's what it's all about.
And how, obviously the big news specifically in the marketplace at the moment is on the back of the Home Builder Grant, which was released a couple of weeks ago by the federal government. What difference has that made to the people coming through? Obviously, more people, more volume. Are they maybe less further down the path of purchasing homes? So they're I suppose more fresh. This grant has given them the motivation to take the first step, or is it really, are you seeing people who are maybe already down the path of purchasing a home who maybe put it off pre-COVID, put it off due to COVID and come back into the woodwork? What are you seeing there on the back of the home builder?
I think it's a bit of both. You've got some people who, really, really early days, maybe haven't even started saving deposit, haven't even seen a finance broker. To be honest, haven't even put $1 away to deposit.
That's right. Yeah,
and they see that $25,000 as basically a magic ticket, to get into a home. And we don't know what that looks like yet, so that's probably concerning. For the other people, it's definitely given them that that kick up the bum, that urgency to maybe make a decision. Look, these guys, in Queensland at the moment, they've got 40,000 reasons to do this now. Yeah, if you don't do it now and you want to, well, you're probably pretty silly. If you have the ability to do it.
Yeah.
So it certainly, I think, motivated people to move in the right direction. Obviously, great news for the builders. It's helped them have a lot more positive conversations, which is great. But yeah, it's bringing everybody out of the woodworks. But for us personally, look, in a lot of what we do, I don't even mention the $25,000 grant.
Yep.
And that's intentional. It's not that I don't think it's valuable. It's that I don't want people only doing or wanting to work with that just for that one boost.
Yep.
I feel like you need a higher buyer intent to want to actually do something. Like I feel like you should have wanted to do this before this.
Yeah.
And if you did, they're the people I really want to help. I don't want people just to think that 25 grand is going to solve every issue they've got.
Yeah. And I suppose if you look at it from our responsibilities as well as advisors or people in the market who people rely on and trust, if your only avenue to purchase a home is on the basis of 25,000, then it may not be necessarily right for you either if you're not in a position to do so before that.
Yeah, that's it. And there's lots of people who are in that exact position, Hayden. They're hopefully maybe in 6 months, if we can get to those people and whether it's putting them on a savings plan or whatever it might be, getting them financially ready to be able to make that decision. Hey, let's do that. We're always happy to start a conversation to get people to that position because it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, correct.
Be nice if it does, but with how strict finance is at the moment, it's just.
I think 50% of our business a couple of years ago was all of our clients were probably 6 months old every time they came through.
Yep.
Because we put milestones in place. When you reach these certain stages, we'll then engage and show you the next spot, path to go down. But it was all through education, through those different strategies, always milestones. We never pretty much took a client and we were selling the next day.
And that's what I really love about your business model is the education involved in it, because a lot of people forget that side of things and how important it is, and they go straight to the property aspect. But then what we find is the fallover ratio is tremendously high because the purchaser is not actually understanding what each process involves. They're not looking at the contract, or they're not looking at the plans and realising that things are developing. They have absolutely no idea what's actually going on, so they start to get scared, that fear of the unknown, So that's why I think, the First Home Buyer Buddy program is so unique and so different to anything out there. And I think, obviously as per the numbers that you're pumping out there, people are loving it.
Mate, absolutely. It's what you touched on there is a big one, that buyer remorse. A lot of people will start that process of purchasing something and then they get scared because They don't have the confidence.
Yeah,
That's,
exactly.
that's what it usually. It's not usually because they're not happy with what they bought, because they haven't actually been able to see anything. Like, they got a bit of dirt.
Yeah, that's right.
At that point, maybe they've seen a few plans and whatever. So it's generally that's going to do that. But on the flip side, it's because they're just not really ready to do it. Unfortunately, there's certain elements out there in every market, but they will tell people what they want to hear for their own financial gain. And it's upsetting, especially when it's first home buyers, because look, I'm pretty sure they probably wouldn't do that to their own family.
Correct.
And you never want to get someone off to a bad start when it comes to this bigger decision.
Yep. I think the one bad point I always see with a lot of the clients is they'll always overextend. Okay, you've got a borrowing capacity of 500,000. Cool, I'll spend 500,000. And every meeting I would have is, we're not going to spend 500,000. It's easier it's not only that, it's harder for your approval too if you're stretching the limit by what you can afford. We would always go, okay, what does 400 and 450 look like? What are those repayments? Does that feel easily achievable? Yes, because you should be able to buy a home but still be able to live a lifestyle. If you just buy the home and you can't live as a lifestyle, that's when the stress really kicks in.
Yeah, and if you've got to live off baked beans and 2-minute noodles and that sort of stuff, there's no fun in that.
And that's what also you're educating these guys on, even as finance brokers and as an agent. Okay, you can afford 500, but as soon as the first like the home builders scheme came out, straight away client, when we're looking at contracts again, and if we had to re-sign them or not, clients were like, okay, we want variations up to $25,000, and they were happy to extend that instead of reducing their loan straight away. Like most of the 80% of the clients went and done that. So
it's like free money.
It's free money instead of like, okay, I can take $25,000 off my loan now, off the build side. Perfect. But no.
It's not human nature. And I think, what you touched on a really important point there as well was it's around that location, where people, it's, okay, well, do you overextend yourself? How much are you going to pay? And are you able to live a lifestyle you want as well? Because there's no point, and this is something we actually touch on the First Home Buyer Buddy on a couple of videos. It's no point that, you just have this beautiful brand new home and then you can't afford to do a thing outside of having it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Suddenly, what ends up happening is people have this then regret towards, or this disdain towards this home that they work so hard to have because they just can't do anything else. They just get to sit in this really nice home. That sometimes they overextend, or they might buy in an area that they don't want just to do it, and then nobody comes and visits. So you've got to be really careful. It's really weighing up those pros and cons, I think, of every decision.
Yeah. And the program itself, tell us about some of the content that you're actually covering in the program, because I know people are probably going to want to know what it is that they're going to be learning from the program itself, everything from start to finish.
Yeah, so two basically parts of the program. So we've got one that covers obviously buying established property for people. That's who originally, I guess, we created this for in the beginning, because we were like, okay, we know that that's such a confusing process for people. But then on the flip side, once we started, we're getting a lot more interest from builders and stuff like that, saying, hey, look, our clients need help with this as well. We thought, okay, cool, well, let's build another arm to this program. So basically we try and keep it really simple, and that was one of the real challenges when building this. It's like, okay, cool, being insiders, having a lot of knowledge in the industry, we talk industry talk all the time.
Yep.
But how do you then bring that back and take that to a really easy learning level for somebody just to watch, 2 or 3 minute video on a particular subject maybe, and get what they need from it and actually understand it without all the lingo and all the bull crap that we all talk about. So,
layman's terms,
so we start really simple, and it always starts with the finance. Comes back to chatting with a broker. My personal preference is for people, or for first home buyers, to work with brokers. Not that I've got anything against the banks, but the banks have only got an appetite for a certain type of maybe client at any given time. So brokers obviously have ability to put them into multiple lenders depending what they like, what their financial situation looks like. From there, it comes down to then if they're going to work directly with a builder, or if they're working with a property company, it's then getting an understanding of what that process looks like. Once you've obviously got the finance approval, it comes down to the budget, and then once you understand what your budget is, that's when I think you really need to look at what do you want in a home. Let's not get all wrapped up in looking at particular facades and designs and stuff like that. Let's just take a step back. Let's look at your family. What do you want to do? How many bedrooms do you want? Do you want kids? Do you want a yard? Do you want to live close to where you work? What does that look like? And then once you understand that, that's when you want to have start chatting with, say, your builder or your property company, and going, okay, cool. What have you guys got? What can we use with our budget and fit into that? Because then you're actually making a decision from the right position, not one where maybe someone's trying to influence or push you into a certain location, maybe that they want to sell.
Yeah, really understanding, I suppose, what it is you're trying to achieve, and like what Tom said, is it going to be suitable and cater to what what you want in a home. So you go right through from your finance, you're through to the property, and then what about when it comes to, let's say, the new side of things, the new builds? What sort of education do you take people through on the new side?
So that's around, this type of questions that they probably really want. If they're going to walk into, say, a retail builder and go through a display or something, the questions that they probably want to be asking, is this, even just around the contract, is this going to be a 100% fixed price contract? Is there going to be site works? Is there, what's the allowance for rock or whatever it might be? Just all these different things that first home buyer wouldn't even be on the radar, right? They're just like, oh, sign me up. So
before they've even got finance in place, they'll go straight, I want to buy a home. Okay, I'm going to go look at display homes today. I found designs I want. I'm like, let's look at the finance again. So it's funny how it happens, Yeah.
And I mean, and this is a funny thing. This is, because we talk to so many property guys and builders, they're all wrapped up, right? They love the property side. And I'm like, I get it, guys. I get it.
Yeah.
But guess what? None of it matters. Doesn't matter unless we get the property side. So that's why even, everything we always do, like the finance is the core. It just, the rest doesn't matter. So, mate, you're right. It's always going to come down to that. And, a lot of, particularly now with this new grant, no doubt people walking into the displays and the land estates especially, people are likely nowhere near prepared finance-wise, but are being pressured to put probably down a deposit on land because they think they're going to miss out. And the truth is right now they may miss out.
Yeah, exactly right.
But that doesn't mean they should be.
Yeah. And I seen something the other day where some builders are even asking before we, I guess, send over the tender or the contract for you to read through the inclusions and specs to know what's actually included, you have to pay a deposit to them as well. Like, it's getting a little bit carried away in some ways. I understand on the developer's point of view where the expressions of interest terms may change or amounts because that may, that's going to help unqualified people secure land, which is a good thing. But I just feel like that sales tactic on some of the, I guess, display homes that I've seen come through in the last 2 weeks, I was just a bit taken back that they're willing to take money. And is that fully refundable? Because it's not into solicitor's trust account a lot of the time. So their next minute clients start losing money, which is then a massive problem.
It's so unfortunate. It's one of those times where there's often so much greed that comes into play in times like these, where everyone just tries to milk the cow for everything it's worth. And that's why there's such a, that's why a program like First Home Buddy, I think, would be so important and relevant to people looking to get into the market, just so that they can understand and spot, what to look out for and have some sort of understanding of some of the traps that you can fall into, because it happens. And there's nothing, like each builder, from our point of view, we operate a little bit differently to some builders, and some builders operate exactly the same as us. But each one, there's nothing wrong or illegal with what they do, but each one has a little, differences, I suppose,
nuances in how they operate.
Yeah, correct. We work off a fully turnkey fixed price model, whereby the price is the price. It includes everything that it says it includes, and you're not going to get charged another cent. But on the same token, there's other builders, and again, there's nothing wrong with what they do, but they operate slightly different. They work on more the upsell type model, where you have the basics and for such and such price, and then the upsell begins to get it somewhere reflective of the display home that you've walked into, when the two don't necessarily match based off face value. So having a program like First Home Buddy, I think, to understand that, and you made a really, really good point there before about what turnkey and fixed price and all that sort of stuff, because that's one of the big pitfalls that uneducated purchasers can fall into, not just first-time buyers, but anyone for that matter, building a new property and ensuring that they're actually signing a fixed-price contract, because it's very, very hard to know what's under the ground, in some places. And if you all you have to do is Google horror stories to find out that if you hit rock or any of those sort of, extreme soil types, it can really quickly escalate your build price. And particularly as a first home buyer, the reality is you're probably not going to have funds there to cover anything that goes wrong. So ensuring that you're asking those appropriate questions through to your builder, your developer, or whoever it may be, right through to your existing, your pest and termite and all that sort of stuff, is so very, very important.
And I think they're not even realistic sometimes of what they're actually purchasing. If you go into a home that's built for $600,000 with all the specs, and you're buying a base price home from them, and your house comes to $260,000, there's a big difference from the house that you're looking at that's $600,000, and that's
anything like it.
And that's unfortunate sometimes where our homes, we have display homes that are 200 square metres for 200 and, that price, around the 250,000, for example. When you go through there, you know exactly the specs you're getting, the exact standard range that you're getting, and the size that you're actually getting, which I think's some specs you can add into the display homes that are standard, but it's actually the size differences as well. So that's the reality that we provide to the first home buyers, why we have such, 50% of our business relies on, because I guess how we've set it up in that strategy.
It is what it is, isn't it?
They can see it and they feel trust. They go, okay, this is what I'm getting. Yeah, if you'd like to upgrade something, you can see it in here. Would you like to upgrade it? Would you like to upgrade deducted? Okay, I can see that I can get that.
Yep.
If they go to a display home, they go, everything's not included in these inclusions. You've got, a below grade, you've got a bronze grade instead of a platinum grade. They don't know the difference.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that model, but it's about transparency. I think.
And look, the truth of it, that marketing model, for certain volume builders, it works really well.
Yeah.
But it's built on being confusing. The more confusing it is, the easier it is to, for people not to understand what they're getting or what they're not getting. And it works really well for them. But yeah, that's a really good point. Something that we certainly touch on them is, if you're going to go out to display homes, you need to understand the difference between, and even the term turnkey, right?
Yeah.
Your turnkey could look very different to somebody else's turnkey.
Yeah, Vol 1, Vol 2, Vol 3, and it's like, isn't there only one?
Yeah, and that's it. So, our whole thought process is just let's make sure they understand exactly what that should be. And then, from once you understand what it should be, you can then, actually ask the right questions to work out, is it? Because, we're never going to be able to tell everybody exactly what is or what isn't. But if they're armed with the right questions, or the right information to take to the builder and say, here you go, tell me, is this what I'm going to get? This, and this. Will this change? No. And they're basically we arm them with a lot of uncomfortable questions that probably the builders don't want to answer.
And they probably never get really asked too much from a normal purchaser come through because they're not educated on that type of questioning.
And it gives them the education too to compare apples with apples. A lot of the time when they go to 2 different builders or 3, 4, they go down that path and they go through the display home, and the next minute they're comparing builders, okay, but they don't even understand the size difference of the home sometimes. They don't know what 200 square metres is, 225 square metres, and they don't know the difference in specs and allowances either. So a lot of the time they go, okay, builder gave us a price for 220,000, the other builder gave us a price for 190. Okay, there's got to be a difference here. You can't have discrepancies like that without inclusions being changed. So you've actually got to work out what's missing. And unfortunately, I developed my own checklist to go through, probably one of the biggest ones that I see out of them is security screens. When it says turnkey from a lot of the guys and I look at it and they don't even have security screens, they go, oh, wow, okay. Next minute, 4.5 is slapped on top. And then obviously the big one is site cost and soil type. But yeah, it's
driveways,
comparing
fences.
Correct. Yeah, it's just educating them, how do you compare the right property to the other one? And that's the big one, knowing the size and the inclusions.
Yeah, and the problem with it as well, for a first home buyer rocking up to a display, at maybe one of the volume builders that uses that marketing strategy where let's include everything and then just people can just peel it back. It's bloody impressive, guys. I'll admit, I'll walk into those homes and I'll be like,
yeah, this is nice.
Like, wow, this is really, this is really nice. Like, geez, I would be happy with this home.
Yeah.
And even if I get that feeling from these, and I know exactly all the bull crap, all the smokes and mirrors, how it works.
That's right.
What is somebody who doesn't understand what that looks like? So yeah, it's just about getting them to understand that that home that they're looking at that they could buy the shell, that home they're looking at has got 300 grand's worth of extra inclusions that they will not have in their home, which means it will look nothing like that home.
Yeah. And because it's, particularly for a first home buyer, it's such an emotional.
It is
purchase. It's hard not to get caught up. I know even when being in the industry and knowing myself not to get emotionally caught up or involved or fall in love with a particular house, you can't help it. Yeah. Because ultimately, you this is human nature. You fall in love with what you like, and when you go through some of these display homes, as you said, even I find myself competitors. I'm like, this is nice.
You're like, oh, they've done pretty good here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Kudos where it's due. Now, mate, you assist people right across Australia, not Queensland.
Yep.
And I think we touched on something off camera which was really interesting, and that's in relation to the home builder, because we see the home builder being particularly effective in the Queensland marketplace because, first of all, for people who may not be as qualified in terms of purchasing power, $25 grand may well be close to 5 or 10% of the purchase price of the new build, and because there's some registered land available here. But I'm sure if we go down to New South Wales and Victoria, and you're probably going to have a greater understanding because of your connections and networks down there. Am I right in saying it's going to be harder to implement or utilise that home builders because of the lay of the land in the Sydney or New South Wales and Victorian markets?
Not so much Victoria. I was looking at some stats this morning, actually, as far as first home buyers showing submitting an application for the home builder. Queensland's currently leading. I think it was maybe 4,800, 4,500 or something.
Right.
People so far. Victoria second, and then it might have either been WA or New South Wales next.
Yep.
New South Wales was around 3,000, maybe 300 or something like that.
Yep.
But I think for Victoria, it's going to work really well down there.
Yep.
There's still really good buying in Victoria.
Yeah, okay.
New South Wales, it's really tough, right? For these guys to get into maybe a decent sort of brand new house and land package, maybe minimum, 650-ish.
Well, look, even Oran Park
700.
Oran Park and those places out there, which is a quite a way in Queensland terms. Anyway, it's a different city in Queensland.
It's almost a different state.
That's
in Queensland.
right. Yeah,
Isn't
exactly.
the terms around land as well really hard?
Yeah,
to secure land, and you've got to go on con in a certain time frame.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more stress and risk there as well.
And it's tough. Like, the 25 grand there doesn't really touch the sides that much. It just doesn't, right? It's just,
That's why they're all moving to southeast Queensland.
That's the reason I moved. No, so I think it's still going to be, for some people, it'll still certainly help a little bit. Will it help the people it really needs to help? I'm not sure about that. But for the other states, I think it's it's going to do some pretty good things at least. Just depends on which none of us know right now. Which is probably a good point is how we can actually, or how people are going to be able to access that home builder grant. Are they going to be able to use it as part of their deposit? The banks don't know yet. The mortgage brokers don't know. From what I've read about the banks so far, because I'm trying to keep a really close eye on this, because I know it's going to either be a game changer, as in a good way or a bad way. So we're yet to sort of see what that looks like. But a lot of banks are saying, you can use it, but only if you've got 5%. So you can prop up, to get up to maybe 10 or maybe to avoid LMI. But if they're not going to allow us to do that, it's okay, but not that great.
It's so strange, isn't it? Like, I understand there was good news needed from the federal government because I suppose the construction industry was what are we going to do here? And because I think it's the biggest employer in Australia. Something needs to happen, but it's a little bit surprising about the time it's taken to actually get some information out to the public because, you speak to the Office of Fair Trading, you speak to these, different organisations, and no one has absolutely any idea. But it seems like the priority list, we've announced it, but they've gone to other things already in terms of they haven't really finished off working out how the mechanisms that's going to actually work.
I think it's been the third week now, isn't it? We're into the third week.
That's almost close, yeah.
Well, it's like, they started with the first about, construction's got to start within 3 months, and then obviously they've made certain updates to that. So, I applaud them for getting something happening so quickly because something needed to happen. And I think, no matter, it's always going to have its detractors. That's life.
Yeah.
Or people always want to pick their eyes out of something. But I think it's, in its most basic form, it's been a good idea. But we'll just, once again, though, it's just one of those things we just have to see how it plays out. I just, like we touched on off camera as well, it's really early days. We went from nothing happening in the market, everybody thinking it was doomsday, to now, it's hard to get land.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
and that's, that's a point in itself, like people it's almost been like a bull rush. And I said it last week too, of people just, and you mentioned it just earlier, people are going to miss out. And we're having qualified purchasers, both owner-occupier investors, who are missing out. They've got their pre-approvals in place, but they've been beaten to the punch by people who have flicked on Channel 7, seen ScoMo give the press conference, and have got they only got $1,000, but they put it all on the lot, at wherever it may be. So it's going to be interesting to keep an eye on, particularly on development and land estate stock list, as to what changes and how that evolves, and whether we start to see lots come back onto the market due to not having, we spoke about the importance of finance earlier, but purchasers not taking those appropriate steps and getting that first stage completed, and whether they've just been a little bit nostalgic about running out there, getting a block of land and saying the rest, she'll be right type mentality.
And then I think leading the developers to bring civils forward, stages forward, more releases forward. and you're not using that 25 right now as a deposit either, there's a lot of those will fall over, and then you're bringing more land on. So it's interesting to see what the next 6 months in the new year will be with land and what the supply will be like. So.
Yeah, I really don't know. It's like
It's
I've been
interesting.
trying to give it a lot of thought, but yeah, I think everyone's got to. It just happened so quick. I think it's really hard to get a gauge on what it's going to look like. I mean, it's exciting times, but yeah, also I probably see a few warning signs there where I feel like a lot of people aren't really prepared for it. And unfortunately, everyone's got their own motivations. Like obviously, land estate agents, their KPIs and targets are to sell.
Yeah, that's
you
right.
You can get a deposit on, get a deposit on.
Yeah, that's
They
right.
probably
Yeah.
battled to get them for the last 6 months.
Yeah,
So now they're
correct.
like,
Yeah.
let's do it while we can do it.
Yeah, I think it's just just working out a really good process for them and getting qualified buyers. Just it doesn't have to be a ridiculous amount of deposit that goes down on the land, but just get a pre-approval or an eligibility letter from the broker to go, okay, they've actually seen someone. That's all we require for the EOI to be complete with $1,000. Because I think that provides a lot more security for the client and the developer.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's just even it'll be interesting to see what sort of time frame they allow for these people to come back and actually make a decision on it.
Yeah,
follow through and purchase or whatever they're going to do. So I don't know.
And the financial impact's still yet to come. Like we were saying off camera, as a builder, we're still doing contracts from January and February. So it's not until August, September that we're, a lot of builders and the construction industry is really going to find out what that financial impact has been until later on in the year.
And the banks, the banks have to lift their game too. If there's such an influx of purchases in the marketplace, I mean, the reality is the banks can't keep up as it is. So there's going to be, again, people who miss out based on the fact that they can't get finance in a reasonable time frame. I'm speaking to brokers on a daily basis right across Australia, and the turnaround time frames just to be looked at sometimes is 40 days as a particular lender, for a refinance.
Who you mean there?
Yeah, 40 days, but before they even pick it up, So, and there's nothing. It's completely out of everyone's control, and that's whereby sometimes, not all, but some developers or builders or even just vendors in general. Can be a little bit impatient and not understanding whereby you've submitted everything, but it's out of my hands. I can't really do anything. I can't make the banks go any quicker. So they start to crash, terminate deals, and people start to lose out on opportunities based on the fact that they can't get finance. And particularly, we're around this 3-month clause or time frame that at the moment the home builder grant stipulates for construction commencement. It's very hard to get finance approval within 3 months, let alone get your council approval and get on site and pour your slab and get your first drawdown done.
Yep, and settlement's normally pushed out to 21 days.
Yeah, correct.
At minimum, and a lot of the fogs, because there's so many application on the fog, they're behind, so it's not even the client's fault. And the developers are getting even harder on penalty interest if they can't settle. So there's a waiver thing that's happening to them at the same time.
Yeah, so I think a little bit of federal government maybe action as well to give the banks a little bit of a prod along, because understandably, I mean, every business in Australia has had to make adjustments through this period and what is an unprecedented time for everyone. But they need to start getting their mechanisms in place back end to deal with the volume, because it's simply just not tenable at the moment to be able to place finance and sit around and wait with such an influx of purchases, just standing at the gate waiting.
That's it. Well, it was broken before this.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So what's going to happen now?
Yeah.
It's, they haven't had an opportunity to fix it. You're right. I think it's going to be really interesting, just that finance side alone going, well, how are you guys going to cope with it? Because, and especially when they can't even make a decision. We don't even know. So all these people who have submitted these home builder applications and all that stuff's just sitting there. What's it doing? It's doing nothing, because they don't even know what they can do with it.
And what bank's going to back it?
No. So all that sort of stuff is just everyone's. Like I said, there's probably what would that be? Maybe around 27,000. I'm guessing something like that. Maybe people applied so far.
Right. Wow.
Or maybe it's between 20 to 25. But yeah, what have they done yet? Well, no one knows. So they're just sitting there, right? Like they have to be sitting there.
See, that's a lot. That's a lot of people when you put it in that context, because I think when the first home builder came out, they expected it to generate, I think it was 30,000 new homes. And so if we're at 20 to 25,000 in the space of 3 to 4 weeks, you'd have to think based off just percentages that a large amount of those will not proceed. Because they gave it 6 months to produce 30,000 dwellings. We're in 3 weeks and we're at 25,000 applications. You'd have to think that there's going to be quite a dramatic fallover rate from that. You'd
it's
have
hard
to think.
Yeah, mate, I agree. It's hard to think it won't happen. I hope it doesn't. But
Yeah,
I agree.
So that's certainly interesting times ahead when it comes to the home builder and everything that comes with that, because it's such a minefield of misinformation, or should I say probably no information really, as to what comes there. Now, mate, I mentioned it in the intro as well. You've been a part of 3 of the biggest seminars for first home buyers in Australian history. Now, based off that, obviously, COVID-19 has changed the way we interact face-to-face on large volumes. So I suppose the seminars have taken a back seat and more of a focus on the online learning platform, which I think a lot of businesses have changed the way, and just everyday consumers and people have changed the way we take on information and understand information. So you probably haven't been really affected by that.
Not so much with our seminars. Basically, is what we did with that is we can use those as different tools in the business. Sometimes they're just purely for an education piece, depending on, I guess, who might employ us to do that. Obviously we'll run our own, but then certain companies will get us to do that for them as well if they want to do that. Some are just for education. Some are obviously for a purpose, maybe to sell a certain builder or to promote and help sell a certain builder or an estate or something like that. But yeah, they're obviously on the back burner. People don't want to go live at the moment. So, but we're able to move those into an online format in sort of almost like a webinar or seminar type format online. And we've run a couple of those. We did a couple of those actually earlier in Sydney whilst COVID was going on, and they worked really, really well. So I think it just comes down to with those sort of things. It's once again, as long as people value it, if it's going to help them, they'll want to be part of it. But yeah, on the flip side now, it's we're probably more focused around that online side, just for the fact that we can probably better qualify people to to work with either us or our clients and things like that. And it's all about quality conversations, not quantity in my eyes.
Yeah. And what's is it a fee model or subscription? How's your sort of model work around that?
So for our first home buyer buddy, our program.
Yeah.
So with our program, works a couple of different ways. So obviously clients can they can purchase directly from our website if they want to. So we get some clients who just purchase it out of the blue. We used to actively promote it. We don't sort of do it so much. It sort of just works by itself now, which is cool.
But I'd imagine something like that, just quickly, sorry to cut you off, if one purchaser has an experience and they are able to put that information they've learnt into action, that would, I'd imagine, spread through wildfire, because the chances are if you're buying a house, maybe your two or three of your friends are also in that same mindset when you get to that certain age.
Yeah, well, that's it. And that's one of the beauties about first home buyers, right? If you give someone a really good experience with, those people, I'm not that age anymore, but they're still at that age where, catching up together, they're going to barbecues, maybe not through COVID, but they're doing all those things and they're talking. This is why I think it's a great market for, our clients to be working with them, because, they will actually spread the word of mouth.
If I was a parent, I'd buy it for my children.
Yeah, and we've certainly had
education.
Parents,
I'd rather give you that as a present than anything else.
Well, that's it. And the truth is, a lot of parents, they're happy to give advice to their kids about buying a property, but when was the last time they did it?
I was about to say, things have changed so much. The way, the property people interact, and I mean, even if you look at, I try and speak to my mother, and I'm talking to her about the opportunities that are available. Just and she can't understand what a 400 square meter block is. She's like, well, you wouldn't, so you grew up in the days where 2 or 3 acres was considered small. So, and I'm trying to, tell her that's a big block.
Yeah,
that's
sizable, mate.
That's right. You'd be lucky. You're one of the bigger ones in the estate, and that's where, often, having the influence of your parents or older people, they may be not all the time, but a little bit out of touch with the way that the market is currently and where it's at and what's the normal. We're seeing blocks right down to 250 square meters, even smaller. And that's it's 2 reasons. It's down to affordability, but a lot of these developers are doing, I've got to say, a tremendous job in the way they develop their estates and having so much amenity available publicly that you don't need necessarily a backyard. I know for me personally, I've got a park across the road. You know, I don't even use my backyard. If I'm going to take the dogs, I'm going to play with the dogs. I'm going to do anything. I walk across the road and I do it in the park, you know. And I think more so with Generation Z or X or I, whatever we're called, you know, backyards are more of an inconvenience now than anything. You know, you got you got a lawnmower and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, my first house at Miranda was that was a house backyard. I was at a corner block. Thought that was a good idea, but you're right. You know, it's all that that home maintenance and stuff like that. For me, it's overrated.
Yeah,
you know, I don't personally love it. So,
and for an extra 50 square meters in the development, you'll probably pay 25 to 30 grand more.
Correct.
And there's an investor's point of view. Like for me personally, I always buy the 400, maybe. Yeah, around the 400 square metre, 375, and I'll always just put the slightly bigger home on there because I know them living in it is more important, and they'll use the amenities in the parks, like Hayden said, nearby.
Yep.
And you're buying a good estate and a good developer that puts that hard work in. You'll never lose on that.
And the reality is, like, you know, kids, I don't have kids myself, but from what I see, they're not really interested in jumping on the trampoline anymore. They're on their iPad playing a trampoline game opposed to jumping on it themselves, you know?
Yep.
So
No,
it's such an interesting shift, and going back to what I was saying, it changes quite regularly. I mean, even 7 or 8 years ago, I was just thinking about this morning, you know, 400 was then, you know, a small block, and that's relatively not that long ago. You know, you were still getting 450s, 500s, 600s, but just with the affordability side of things and the way it's positioned, is that blocks will continue to get smaller. And, you know, look, if you look at Sydney and Melbourne, all those guys, they understand it quite easily. They get it. You know, they get it because they've already gone through it. They've seen it. You got places like Redfern and terrace houses and all that sort of stuff that are, you know, 50, 100 years old, and that's been like that in the way it is. So it's coming to Queensland. That, you know, it's starting to trickle through the terrace housing and some of the smaller housing, and that'll, you know, Queenslanders just have a love affair with, you know, the big backyard and the barbecues and the pools and all that sort of stuff. But it'll have to change, and it is changing. There's no doubt about that. So having an education program, and I'm assuming you go through all that sort of stuff with them as well, and then connect them to maybe an option or a builder or a property company in the area, just to get a more, I suppose, a more hands-on approach to what actually they can buy and the opportunities that are available. But you've already armed them with the information they need to make sure they have that.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we want them to have both, right? We want them to have that education, you know, platform there, or the strategy there to understand the process better if they want it. Look, the truth is, some people want it, some people don't want it. That's just the nature of, you know, some people use things, some people don't. I'd love if everybody to, you know, use it really to, or how we've created it, but it's just not the way it always works. But for the people that really go through that process, I know without doubt, it, you know, arms them. You know, we always get comments going, "Oh wow, that's, you know, you just saved me $5,000, or you just saved me $10,000 through just a little decision." But yeah, and from that point, you know, we just use it for different means. Sometimes, we will tie that into marketing strategies we use, and you know, to help create opportunities for our clients. So whether it's builders or property companies that we work with, where, you know, we use that as a tool, you know, to create unique offers in the marketplace. You know, where it's not just about selling them a property. Hey, you know, obviously that's what you want to do, but what we're also going to do is, you know, actually give you some training and guide you through this process too. So for us, it's just about, you know, using it in different ways, but making sure that the customer is always at the center of it.
Daniel, mate, we're out of time today, but it's been so awesome having you on the podcast today, and really getting to get inside your brain and learn more about what it is you do. Before we go, let us know how we can get in touch, or for purchasers, how can they get to First Home Buyer Buddy and prospective property companies, builders who also maybe want to work with you?
Perfect, guys. Just head to our website, www.firsthomebuyerbuddy.com.au.
Perfect.
Thank you for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Awesome, Dan. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
See you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks, mate.